you for the invitation, Steve, and it is good to see you again.
Hi everyone, Steve here from RSM, and welcome to our latest edition of our Coffee Conversation series. Today I'm joined by Gary Carroll from G8 Education Ltd. Gary is the Managing Director of what is one of the largest childcare groups in Australia. So welcome, Gary.
Thanks, Steve.
This is all about having a bit of a chat over a coffee. We started this series probably around over 12 months ago, and we were Zooming it because everyone was on Zoom then. These days we can actually do it face-to-face, and we thought when we could do that, we'd keep it going. So really appreciate your time.
No problem. I'm glad we got in this week because next week might be Zoom. You never know.
Entirely possible. So Gary, before we get into the conversation, perhaps if you could tell us a little bit about yourself, about who is Gary Carroll?
Who's Gary? So if we go all the way back, I'm a Queenslander, born in Ipswich. Went to school. Divided my time, when I was young between Ipswich and Townsville. Then actually moved to the dark side, went to Sydney for a few years, came back up for high school, had stayed in Brisbane really since then, barring a short stint in Sydney for a job with an energy company. In terms of my career, after I finished uni at UQ, started in an accounting firm, in tax, actually, which is something you might enjoy.
Very good.
And after 2 years there, was driven completely insane by timesheets.
Mm-hmm.
And tax. And so looked to get out, and I joined an investment bank at the time called AIDC. Started off as an analyst in that and got into project finance and corporate finance. From there, joined Citi Bank, had 8 years at Citi in a corporate banking role. And then got approached by one of my clients, Duke Energy, to be their regional treasurer. Had 2 years there, which was fantastic. Went from a mandate of buy everything, because they were growing strongly, to when Enron hit, for those who are old enough to remember that. Mm-hmm. And literally overnight it went from buy everything to sell everything. We're getting out of Australia. So it led a dual track trade sale IPO process. Got out of Australia with a profit, so very happy with that. Moved back to Queensland after a short stint in NAB. I then got into retail, starting at Flight Centre, which was a whole lot of fun, and then moved to Super Retail Group for 10 years. When I started, it was called Super Cheap Auto. I started as their CFO. We then bought a bunch of other brands, some of which you know very well. And broadened it to be multi-brand, about $2 billion of revenue. But after 10 years there, various roles, got approached to be the CFO at G8 Education. Really intrigued by the opportunity to join a business that has such an amazing purpose and provides such value to society, and also a business that had gone through a ridiculous amount of growth. I thought Super Retail grew quick. G8 had grown from 40 centres to nearly 500 in about 4 years, and required a massive turnaround off the back of that, because whenever you grow that quickly, you tend to lose your team, you lose your customers, and all your processes need complete reinvigoration. So I like that stuff. I like doing the turnaround. So 6 months in the CFO role, and then stepped into the CEO role to keep going with the turnaround, and been loving it ever since.
That's awesome. So perhaps if we could tell us a little bit more maybe about G8 Education itself. So you've touched on that and kind of the journey that you've been on and the company has been on and continues to be on.
Yeah, so what we do, we provide long day care services through about 465 centres today. We're in all states and territories except Northern Territory and Tasmania. We're broadly representative of the population. Our largest states, New South Wales, Victoria, etc. And long day care is where we provide childcare and early education to children aged from as young as 6 weeks through to just prior to joining prep or joining school. So 6 weeks to 6 years. Most people think of the sector as being about care. What I've learnt since I've been there is most people within the sector are very proud of the early education element of it. And not many people know that 80 to 85% of your brain development occurs before the age of 5. So what we do has a massive impact on children's lives and families' lives, because we're working in partnership with parents to develop children socially, emotionally, cognitively. And that's what makes it, all of our team is so passionate about that early education element and the impact they have on lives. It really leads to an organisation that is so supportive and caring. You actually love rocking up to work every day. Now, because of the growth trajectory we've been on, it's not without its challenges in actually getting the business on a proper footing, getting the proper support and processes to enable our team to do what they do best. So in the last 5 and a bit years, we've replaced nearly every operating system in the business. By the middle of next year, we would have replaced every platform. We've grown an education team from 0 in 2019 to actually having what we call practice partners and support network throughout our entire network. And they're the people that our team love. They're the ones that are working with our educators every day to provide that amazing curriculum to our children. And yeah, we're in the process of re-engineering everything we do, and we're very clear that it's all about how do we provide support for our centre teams so they can in turn provide amazing experiences for families.
Yeah. Yep. Great. Tell me a little bit more about, certainly, as I said right at the start, we started these things, in a virtual sense because we had to, because we're in the middle of a pandemic, and it'd be good when we can have a conversation. We don't have to use the word pandemic or COVID in that conversation, but I will anyway. But I guess in your sector, we talk about businesses and everyone faces their challenges. But what sort of challenges have you had to deal with over the last sort of 12 months or so?
Oh, that's a great question. So the best example I can give, Steve, is everyone remembers the day when the Prime Minister announced the very first major lockdown and all the queues outside Centrelink offices. We had those same queues outside every one of our centres around Australia, because when people were staring down, potentially losing their employment and not being mobile in terms of being able to go to work, we had, as a sector, massive amount of people wanting to exit the sector. To put a bit of context behind that, at that time of year, sector occupancy is about 60 to 65%. It's the low point of the year because all of the children that are in our centres that leave to go to school do it in that January, February period. We then get new children joining. It's a big time of year for us. Attendance dropped from mid-60s to 30 across the sector, pretty much overnight. And so a massive amount of stress on our teams and very emotional people going, I can't give you a 2-week notice period. I'm out today, and can you refund me my final 2 weeks of fees? And it was real. We had to switch straight away to how do we support our centres get through what is a nightmare. Full credit to the federal government at that time. Within a week, they'd announced a sector-specific relief package, because at 30%, Steve, the sector wasn't viable. No, G8 Education's a bit lucky that we're publicly listed. We have access to equity capital and clearly partnerships with our banks. Within 5 days of the government announcing their relief package, we raised $300 million via an entitlements offer to our existing shareholders, and we felt we needed to do that to just protect ourselves from who knew what was going to happen. If it was extended lockdown at 30% for a very long period of time, that would have placed the whole viability of a number of businesses at risk. And it's a really interesting sector in that it's incredibly fragmented. Our market share is 6-7%. The largest player in the market is Good Start Early Learning. They're a social enterprise that really like that business, great business. They're at about 9.5%. We're 3 times bigger than the next largest competitor, and if you'd say the scale players make up a a much smaller proportion of the market than any normal market. 82 to 85% of childcare businesses are operated by individuals who might own 1 or 2 centres. So if they're faced with occupancy halving, that's a mortgage moment for them. That's a real problem. So the government stepping in saying, we will make you viable and we will provide you with a funding package to ensure you're viable was a massive relief. They didn't say they'd make us overly profitable. They said they'd make us viable, and they structured the relief package to essentially mean that we operated at break even. We then did what every other business did, was we approached our landlords and looked for some relief there. We probably didn't get as much favour out of our landlords as the smaller operators did. A, they knew we raised $300 million, and B, we're big, that we can absorb a lot. So we did have a large proportion who were very friendly and favourable, and some not so much. And then we looked to really control our costs to ensure that we could get through. But it was a daily experience of how we're tracking, how we're supporting our teams. Our focus very much after that first week was, how do we support our team? Because we have been open every single day through the pandemic. And that's something that some people may not realise, in that everyone remembers the online schooling. We got feedback from lots of parents about the joys of homeschooling. We were open every day. So our team were at the front line. And at that point, it's hard to remember, there were real fears about their own health and safety at that point. So it's how can we support our teams and make sure that we're there for them. And we also set ourselves an objective really early on of, how can we maintain our entire workforce during this whole period? How do we keep our casuals, part-timers and permanents fully employed during the whole period? And really proud to say we managed to achieve that, clearly with the help of government funding, but also we managed people's leave to give them, people that were stressed about attending, we said, let's talk about how we can help you make that happen. And so we got through it. Like many businesses, we ended up coming up with a term, instead of Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, everything became Blursday. And it just felt like you were going from, you didn't kind of know what day a week it was. It was 7 days a week for, I don't know how long it was, but it was as long as we needed to. The government's support of us, I can't understate. They were amazing. Their relief package enabled parents that didn't want to attend to not attend and not get charged, which meant they stayed enrolled, which was really important for us. At the end of July or middle of July, they said, we're tweaking it, we're turning fees back on, but we'll keep giving operators a bit of support as enrolments and attendances build up. This is the period post all the lockdowns, people were feeling a bit more confident. It rebounded a lot quicker than what anyone had ever thought. So where we are today is our enrolments and attendances, till last week, with a bunch of lockdowns, were nearly back in line with the 2019, which, if you'd asked me in March 2020, would that have happened? I wouldn't have believed that. So we're left with a sector that's in really actually pretty good shape.
It's a good story, Gary. So, it's often said that, and I say it far too often in this series, but every cloud has a silver lining. What's the silver lining for you and for G8 Education? So what, it's great to hear a positive story, which you've already told. What are there opportunities that have come up from sort of left field that, because of the adversity that you've had to face?
Yeah, it's a great question. So our capital raising has put us on so much more of a stronger financial footing. We were, prior to the pandemic, our gearing levels were a bit higher than what I would certainly like. I inherited a balance sheet that, we were slowly repairing. I got the opportunity to repair that in one foul swoop, and we now have all the financial firepower we need, and we're actually turning our mind to, now we've stabilised the core business, and as other adjacent markets are still in various states, we think that may throw up some decent opportunities in the near term. I actually took the opportunity during COVID to augment my leadership team. One of the fluky bits of luck is when a number of sectors, particularly aviation sector, etc., were disrupted, they had to reduce their employment numbers. So there were a lot of really talented people that were out there, and we've taken the opportunity to bring a couple of those on board. So I think I've been left with a leadership team that's really fantastic, and I wouldn't have got that without the pandemic allowing those opportunities to emerge. And then the third thing, which is a kind of beneath the surface one for us, Steve, is we have been in the process of evolving our culture. We've redrafted our values. We got the opportunity to really play that out in a pretty stressful situation where our team go, I can actually feel the support of the entire business in a way that they probably wouldn't have ever felt before. So the opportunity in front of us is now, how do we take that momentum and continue with that, and really build this organisation and this culture that learns from those really stressful, challenging situations on, actually, that's how we should be supporting each other each and every day. And what does that look and feel like? And let's embed those behaviours each and every day. Yeah,
that's great. What a great story. So, Gary, thanks so much for taking time out of your day. I know you're a busy man, and sharing that with us. For everyone out there who's tuned in, thanks again for joining us. I'm sure you heard some really valuable insights from Gary, and I'm sure if there's anything in there that you'd like to hear a little bit more about, you know where to find us. So until next time, take care and stay out of trouble. Thank you.